Welcome to my channel.
Throughout the calendar year, save for a few exceptions, on my distant morning drives to work, I indulge myself with mindless pleasure with whatever media may play at that given time on my little radio. My earliest recollection of this static, though hazy and hard to place, can be traced back to just a few weeks ago. My mind's first impression was that perhaps the radio hadn't been tuned properly. My vehicle is one of an older model. It was my father's final gift before his passing. Only 2 years prior, however, when turned left or right, the clarity of the station, though it would worsen, it would never improve beyond what I had it at. The static was faint, comparable to your arm when you lay slightly too long on it, just enough to feel the numbing effect of the pressure, but not enough to have it be fully numbed. And at the start, the unintrusive nature of the static allowed my ears to ignore it without consequence. However, with my hindsight, I see that this static has made its first appearance much before I had even noticed it. I remember making my usual revolution around the roundabout, my landmark which let me know that I was halfway along the distance to my workplace when I first noticed it. Right before I had pulled the wheel to turn right, wrapped in the static, a few syllables broke through by a soft voice, and in that very moment had said a very faint, "Turn left." My mind processed the words, and as my brows narrowed, I was certainly perturbed. But under the influence of a rational mind, I had quickly dismissed it, and it was shortly after whipped from the surface of my conscience and left in a dim region where impressions lie dormant until stirred again. A couple of days died before I had my second instance. As I took my regular route to my place of work, bizarrely, at that aforementioned roundabout, I had heard once again the exact same words, spoken in the exact same manner, hidden behind that static once more. Turn left. I believe that if it had happened differently for the second time, perhaps I could have reasoned it once more. But the similarity of the situation had given me déjà vu and stirred my first experience back into my mind once more. The static had grown ever present, and after my first two experiences, like a passenger narrating my movements, that voice had become comfortable and begun predicting my actions more and more. At the stoplight, before the light's green illumination had even shone, at the corners which I had needed to turn at, before the crosswalks which I had to stop at so that the pedestrian was permitted to cross. And when it had grown more comfortable and began creating entire predictions of things even more impossible than the last, it had spoken my order at a drive-in before I had even formulated the words to articulate it. I was disturbed by this voice, and the static began to disconcert me. In my attempts to flee, I tried to change the radio, and the static followed. I had purchased a new radio under the suspicion that my device had a problem, and the static had somehow transferred to this foreign device. In my very final attempt, despite my reluctance, I began to carry headphones with me, which would play my music to accompany me on my commutes to work, and when even that failed, hopelessly, I ceased any further attempts. If the static rode along the audio waves of media, on the radio, in my headphones or things of that sort in particular, I had reasoned that perhaps I would find peace without it all. And a week ago, I had made this decision to drive to work, and the sounds of my tires on the asphalt and the world's breath outside my vehicle would be the only sounds that I would hear. My tires rolled, and the sweet cracks of it dragging across the dusty asphalt soothed my ear, until I reached that roundabout. Turn left. The voice had said, clear as truth, unleashed from its static prison and freshly coated with freedom under the sky's burning eye. After this passed, I had tried to continue on with my usual daily motion. But this overlooking voice disturbed me throughout my daily life, narrating my actions right before I did them, speaking its words a fraction of a second earlier each day, until eventually he began saying whatever I did just as I did it. My boss's concern was incredibly valid this morning on our call, as I took my first day off in over a year. However, the truth had not revealed itself in our conversation for fear of the insanity of the situation. The sun rose with the morning, and my tires rolled along the road like it always had as I arrived at the roundabout when I had heard, turn right, and with an obedience of a dog, my arms flung the wheel right like a helm against my best wishes. My car's bumper wrapped around a light pole and took every bit of impact that would have otherwise spilled my blood and stolen my life. I'm not confident whatsoever that when the voice gives its next command, that I would be able to resist or even survive. But I'm making this post with hopes that someone may know or have any advice that may help me.